Brandon Johnson responded to the Department of Justice's investigation into his civil rights violations because he got all black cabinet, apparently, and he's handing out contracts to predominantly black contractors. And he gets up here on this press conference. He basically says that he got the greatest city in Chicago and a bunch of craziness like that. So we're going to listen to what Brandon Johnson got to say. If y'all watched my last video on Brandon Johnson, y'all seen I went straight to the people to find out what the people actually think about Brandon Johnson. So let's compare and contrast what Brandon Johnson got to say and what the actual citizens of Chicago got to say. Let's get into it.
Good morning. Want to get your comments on the Department of Justice investigation that we learned about yesterday. You've had your back and forths with the president over the months, and I'm wondering if you could have forecasted this to be a focal point of his Department of Justice and what your initial reaction was to the investigation.
Well, I'm not surprised, right? I mean,
of course you're not surprised.
This administration has, obviously has demonstrated a great deal of animus and disdain towards what is sensible about our country, and that's the diversity of our country. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have one of the most, if not the most diverse administration in the history of Chicago. What's clear is that not only does the Trump administration not respect the rule of law or what's sensible about our society, you would be hard-pressed to find qualified individuals who are in his administration.
Now, I find that hard to believe that you can sit there and say that Trump don't believe in the rule of law when Trump is trying to deport migrants. He's going after cartels. He's going after different types of things that no other politician, really Republican or Democrat, has ever went after before. And how are you diverse when you have an all-black cabinet? I understand the Civil Rights Act. I understand that you want to give black people opportunities, but at the same time, your whole cabinet is black. It just seems like if you have people of multiple different nationalities and racial backgrounds working in government, whether that's local government, city government, state, federal, to me, that seems like you have a better conversation on how to serve the people.
And that is the biggest difference between what we're doing in Chicago and what is coming from the federal government. We're going to remain firm and steadfast in our commitment to ensure that the incredible diverse talent that we have within our administration that continues to lead us towards the safest, most affordable big city in America, we're not going to shy away or apologize for who we are.
Now, he said they live in the safest, most affordable city in the world. I think he said that. And if you ask the people of Chicago, they don't agree with that. You got crime all over the place. You got the teen takeovers. You got all of these gangs all throughout Chicago, especially on the south side. And now, apparently, you got these Venezuelan migrants that are joining the gangs that are already there. How do you consider that safe? I know me as a black man, mixed man, whatever you want to say, I know there's parts of Chicago that I won't go. You can pull up on the street down in Chicago and people looking at your car, they already know you don't belong there. Okay, so they already on you. When you roll up on the block, they already on you. That's where the term checking in come at. Like if you don't know nobody in the hood and you just out there on your own and you in the wrong spot and you can come across the wrong group of guys, you can be in for a bad day.
No. Look, it's clear that this administration does not respect the rule of law. It's also clear that this administration is more interested in creating, division within our country while we are being inclusive. I'm proud of the fact that we have individuals that have legal backgrounds, operational backgrounds, education backgrounds. I mean, when I think about, again, just the diversity of my administration, we're working hard every day to make sure that the values of my administration reflect the uniqueness of the city of Chicago. And we're doing that. And that's what the people of this country, that's what they really want. This divisive tactic that this administration is just dead set on engaging in, I'm confident that the goodwill of people, everyday people who are approaching me about how we can create more opportunities for young people, right? Approaching me about how we build more affordable homes. You know, again, April, the fewest amount of homicides since 1962. As violence continues to go down and our investments continue to go up, that's what everyday working people in this city are concerned with, and that's what I'm concerned with, and that's what I'm addressing.
Now, he said something very interesting. He said something about people coming up to him. Didn't he say something about that? Well, let's take a look what happens when people that not only voted for him, but they campaigned for him and they set up his campaign. Look what happens when they come up to him. Here's a prime example of what happens when people come up to Brandon Johnson. Now, keep in mind, this is somebody who campaigned for Brandon Johnson, this lady right here. The gentleman that's running this interview, he's a resident of Chicago. He has his own channel. It's the Chicago Conservative. This is a live that he did when he went out on the streets just about a month or so ago. And I'm going to leave that link down in the description so you can watch this whole live. It's like about an hour and some change long. So I took a couple clips out of it. And I want y'all to see exactly what this woman says. Now, she's not a Republican, okay? This is not a Republican saying this, but this is a Democrat, okay? And this is how he treats Democrats who voted for him and who campaigned for him. Watch what she says.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I bumped into a big supporter of the channel, guys. We got the Truth in the building today. How's it going, Truth?
Not bad at all. Just out here to support Chicago Flipping Red.
Yes, ma'am, man. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate all my subscribers and stuff like that. So I love you guys so much. It's good to finally see you guys in person. But, I mean, clearly you have good opinions about Donald Trump, but let's hear your opinions about Donald Trump. How do you feel he's doing as president? Is he doing good? Is he doing bad?
I thank God every day for Donald Trump. He's turning things around, and he's turning around in our favor. You know, they may say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but I've only ever voted Democrat. And I don't like how I've been treated by the Democratic Party. So I say it's time to give another party a chance.
Yeah, and then, like I was just telling another young lady earlier, we've been voting Democrat for over 60 plus years. They've never really done anything for us. And as far as Chicago being so corrupt in general, we don't really have a shot. Yeah.
So I've been voting Democrat since 1993. Not only do I vote Democrat, but I actually work for the Democrats. I work for the Chicago Board of Elections. And I have been since 2000 as an election judge, as a deputy registrar. I've campaigned for every Democrat in the state of Illinois. So, you know, it's not that my faith is in another party. That's not the issue at all. My whole thing is general purposes. They owe us something, and it's time for them to hold them accountable.
Remember when Brandon Johnson says when people come up to him, just listen to this.
Looking forward to it.
I'm absolutely looking forward to it. That's what I voted for. Yeah. I want to see them all be held accountable, from Danny Davis to LaShawn Ford to J.B. Pritzker. Every Democrat I've ever voted for, I want them investigated. And I also want the Department of Children and Family Services investigated.
Yeah, see, you want it. And how do you feel about Brandon Johnson? What you got to say about Brandon Johnson?
I campaigned for Brandon Johnson. I voted for Brandon Johnson. The things I've done for Brandon Johnson, just in general, in the community, I'm absolutely disappointed. I regret my vote every single day. I see that he is not for Chicago people. It was Chicago. We held him down. I set up Kenwood Academy for Brandon Johnson. I set up the parking lot against Paul Vallis for Brandon Johnson. The things I've done. And for him to get in, see, he ran off of the hood. He ran off of the hood. It was the hood that got Brandon Johnson in. And once he got in, he didn't know us anymore.
Brandon Johnson said he had the most inclusive administration, the most diverse city with diverse goals. But here's somebody who campaigned for him saying that she regrets her vote and she wants to turn her vote back in, basically. And Brandon Johnson act like he don't know him no more. Brandon Johnson basically used the black people to get votes and basically turned his back on the community. Maybe it's just her saying that.
It's absolutely crazy. I hope Brandon Johnson see this. You suck, by the way.
Absolutely. I saw Brandon Johnson on Madison, and he spoke to me as if I was trash beneath his feet.
That's unbelievable.
This is somebody who actually campaigned for him, set up events for him, and she's still a Democrat. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand that. I guess everybody has a freedom of choice for party. But wow.
Just goes to show you how the Democrats treat us. We give them our vote and they treat us like garbage. We help them campaign and they treat us like garbage. We pay our taxes and they treat us like absolute garbage. And even Joe Biden himself called us garbage, guys. So this is what the Democrats really think about us. So thank you for that. I really hope Brandon Johnson see this.
Most definitely. I hope he see it too. But I've already told Brandon Johnson in person, he know what time it is with me. He knows what time it is. All I say is Chicago flip red all day, every day.
I know that's right. Thank you, Truth.
Brandon Johnson is saying one thing, but his people who actually campaign for him are saying a totally different thing. But let's check back in with Brandon Johnson and see what else he got to say.
Back to the DOJ investigation. You know, one thing people say about you is wherever you go, you sound like you're talking to your base, which would basically be the black church, right? In this environment where Washington is scrutinizing Chicago, do you agree or regret that it always sounds like you're talking to black voters, and so sometimes your message gets lost in translation for a broader audience?
Yeah. So I've talked about having the lowest amount of homicides in April, the lowest amount since 1962. That speaks to the entire city of Chicago. Robberies being down, that's all of Chicago. Building affordable homes, that's all of Chicago. Our mental and behavioral health support services for our care program, the expansion of mental and behavioral health, it's all of Chicago. When I talk about building affordable homes and building homes downtown, you can make an assumption that I'm only talking about one particular race as well. We know who concentrates in that particular part of the city. So, look, it sounds like to me that people tune in to what they want to tune into. Because the fact of the matter is that I've shown up for this entire city. When we put $1 billion in our public school system, we don't cherry pick.
Did he just say he put $1 billion into the public school system? I don't know. I might be wrong, but it sounds like he just snitched on himself again. What do y'all think? Take a look. She's a resident of Chicago, and she went to the oversight committee hearing, and she basically told them what was going on in Chicago because she feels like the black community doesn't have a voice in Chicago. The black community did not want the sanctuary status, and the black community of Chicago did not want the migrants to be flooded through their communities, which is reasonable considering that they don't have the resources already. And pretty much everybody in the world knows that the south side of Chicago is one of the roughest sides and it's under-resourced. So all of these migrants have been let into the country and they have been flooding these neighborhoods, these schools. And all of a sudden, Brandon Johnson says Trump is the one causing division and that Trump is the one not respecting the rule of law when, listen to what she has to say about it.
We'll next hear from Ms. Carter Walters.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and esteemed members of the subcommittee. And thank you to President Donald J. Trump, the people's president.
Wow. She didn't say thanks to Brandon Johnson.
For giving Chicago Flips Red our first platform, and to the subcommittee for the opportunity to speak truth in the people's house. We proudly stand with our president to bring his message to the Black American community and expose the lies pushed by the Democrat Party and the fake news media. We
that wouldn't be people just tuning in to whatever they wanted to.
Are here to confront the reality of sanctuary cities. Despite the word sanctuaries, these cities are anything but safe. Chicago has claimed the title for years, and now we're drowning in the consequences. Lifelong residents are pushed aside, schools are overcrowded, crime is out of control, and affordable housing is vanishing.
I thought I just heard Brandon Johnson say something about housing is affordable. They just put, $1 billion into the school system? Oh, it's interesting.
This crisis exploded under Biden and were worsened by the reckless, agenda-driven leadership of Lori Lightfoot and Brandon Johnson. They didn't just ignore the collapse, they fueled it. In December 2023, 23, a few aldermen tried to give us a voice, but the mayor and his allies used systematic stunts to block the vote on the non-binding sanctuary city referendum.
Block the vote? So that would be, what, illegal maybe?
Silencing Chicagoans and stripping us of our right to choose. Every elected official swears an oath to serve their constituents and uphold the Constitution. Brandon Johnson has failed. He's dismissed that oath in his obsession with keeping Chicago a sanctuary for illegal aliens. He's driven our city into a $1 billion deficit, handed out shady non-bid contracts, and funneled over $6 million into services for illegal aliens. That's why we demand a full forensic audit focused on migrant-related spending. This isn't mismanagement, it's organized looting of taxpayer dollars.
Wow. Now that doesn't sound like law and order to me. Let's check back in with Brandon and see what else he's got to say.
You know, when we're talking about, a Bears stadium, that's the benefit with these economic opportunities for all of Chicago. When Beyonce hits me up and she wants to come to Chicago, she's going to perform for everybody. So, this notion that somehow what it sounds like, let's just look at the facts. We have the most diverse administration in the history of this city. We've invested so much in environmental justice. Everybody cares about that. And so I'll just end with this. Why wouldn't I speak to Black Chicago? Why wouldn't I? Black Chicago and Black people in America have borne the brunt of the type of policies and the maneuvering and the humiliating tactics that are coming from the federal government right now.
Now let's hold that thought, because once again, we're going to go back to the judiciary.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Democrats keep using the phrase constitutional crisis, but the real constitutional crisis is sanctuary city mayors, DAs, and judges who are defying federal law and preventing the president from doing the job that he was elected to do by the American people. It is the job of the federal government to keep Americans safe. When violent gangs are taking over American cities like Chicago, that is an invading army. When you can't live peacefully in an apartment in Colorado, that is also an invading army. No judge, DA, or liberal mayor should be able to usurp the power of our commander-in-chief, who was elected by 77 million Americans, and now the Supreme Court agrees. Since the Democrats do not like the result of the election, you would think that they will be focusing on the midterms coming up, but instead they are engaging in a judicial coup d'etat. The reason they are not focused on the midterms is because they are not confident that they can take back control of the House of Representatives in 2 years, because they have no leader and they have no valid message.
I agree with that. I think a lot of the reason is because they lost the Black vote. You might still have some Black women out there voting and maybe a few Black men. The Democrats just want your vote. That's all they want. They're not going to give you nothing. They're going to make all the promises all the way up to heaven and back, that they're going to be there for you. They're going to give you everything you need. They're going to make everything right. And then if they get elected, they go into their gated communities. You don't hear from them until it's election time. And the only way we're going to get change is by having somebody that's willing to stand up and say, let's do what's right instead of trying to be cool.
The Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating with voters in this country, and because their only message is Trump is bad. They've gone so far as to attack people for driving electric vehicles. They openly admit that they are DEI hires, and they claim that the reason they're not popular with voters right now is because they are not opposing Trump enough. That's the reaction to their failure. Their solution is to become more extreme and more unpopular with their policies. This question must be asked: does the Democrat Party hate President Trump more than they love our country and more than they love the safety of my fellow Americans? Ms. Carter Walters, thank you for being here, ma'am. I really appreciate your testimony earlier and your experience specifically in Chicago. Are communities of colors disproportionately impacted by illegal migrants getting special privileges? And if so, how?
Yes, so they are placed in our communities. They are not placed anywhere else but in our communities. And they are taking over our schools. So whereas you already had overcrowded schooling, so you might have 20 to 1 class. Now you have 40 to 1 class, and then they don't speak English. So now that's taken away from the child already who is already in an overcrowded classroom. And then you have where now we can't even, they took over our parks. So where you'll have a grandmoms and things, kids, to keep the kids off the street, they house illegals into the field houses. So they took over our field houses. And then now apartments, whereas because our mayor is paying so much money for illegals to house them, now we have landlords that won't even rent to American citizens because they're renting to illegals because they get paid more for illegals.
Now, let me ask you the next question, ma'am. You've been black for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
So me too. I mean, I've been black for my entire life, so just want to acknowledge that. So by basically what you're saying, do you view yourself as a different American, or do you just care about the safety of our community? Are you a racist for feeling this way?
No.
Thank you very much.
I don't feel like a racist either. I love black people. I love all nationalities, but we got a problem with crime in the black community, and that's just the fact of it. Let's check back in with Brandon Johnson and see what else he was saying, because I got a few more things that I find very interesting.
If we can go back to the DOJ thing, how would you say that race factors into your hiring decisions as you're trying to build your administration?
Well, look, I do believe that there is a tremendous amount of value to make sure that we have qualified, talented people who work in government. I'm feel blessed that our budget director, who just happens to have a JD, right? It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it's not a requirement of the job, but she brings that element. When I think about someone like Angela Tovar, who is leading up our environmental department, her skill set and her reputation around the globe is just absolutely it's just amazing, quite frankly. What I look for people who are competent, right? People who are collaborative and people who are compassionate. Is there a value to make sure that people who are closest to neighborhoods bring that level of expertise? There's value in that. Of course, there's value in diversity, and we should never shy away from that. Unfortunately, I believe the reason why we've had so many moments that we've had to address is because there's been a hyper concentration of a particular group or gender that has dominated politics, right?
Would that be the Democrat Party? Sounds like to me you're talking about the Democrat Party. And yeah, you guys have been dominating politics in Chicago for decades now. And you can't blame that on the Republicans, okay? That's one thing you can't blame on Donald Trump, but Donald Trump hasn't been in Chicago. I know a president that was in Chicago. I ain't gonna say his name, but I think everybody know who I'm talking about.
Your administration was getting beat up, and prior administrations too, for that matter, over crime. And now the crime is going down. Do you see this as the Trump administration looking for some other reason to, take a shot at Chicago?
Look, when you are the world champion of the world, there's going to be multiple reasons why people are going to want to battle you. That just comes with the terrible. When you're the greatest freaking city in the world, there are going to be individuals who are going to want to challenge that, right?
The greatest city in the world. I would argue that it's not the greatest city in the world.
Look, my focus is, again, building the safest, most affordable city in America, big city in America. And we're not patting ourselves on the back. I mean, we're working hard every single day.
You're not patting yourself on the back. It sounds like you're patting yourself on the back to me. I don't know. Just you keep saying you're the greatest city in the world, but you got all these people in your community that's not happy with you, the people that voted for you, people that put you in office, and you put a whole bunch of people in their community that don't have any resources, and you just multiplied the problems of that community, and then you basically turn your back on them, and you talk down to them when they come up to you and approach you. Like, I just think this guy is a total hypocrite. He keeps talking about his crime numbers are down. I think this is the real reason why his crime numbers are surprisingly going down.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, border crisis, illegal aliens flooded sanctuary cities, overwhelmed their infrastructure, and maxed out their budgets. According to the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, By the end of the fiscal year 2025, the city had spent more than $12 billion on illegal aliens for their city. A study also shows that for Denver, one study estimated that city had spent $356 million on illegal aliens. And Ms. Walters, according to the report, the mayor of Chicago spent $638 million in vendor contracts for illegal aliens since 2023. Ms. Walters, have you seen your taxpayers' dollars being used to benefit illegal aliens instead of the American citizens?
Yes. And actually, after he spent all that money, he then came back and tried to propose a $300 million property tax on the American citizens. So
now he wants American citizens to fund the migrant crisis so he can what? Cover up the fact that the community that he put him in don't have the resources.
not only did he take our tax dollars and spend it on people who, and let me just say this, when you come across that border illegally, you have broke the law, therefore making you a criminal. So the 20 million people who cross this border are criminals. So let's just get that, get that straight right now. That's why we trust President Trump, because he is listening to the American citizens. And the Democrat Party, that's why their rating is what, 26%? Because they refuse to listen to what the American citizens want.
Ms. Walters, I think really, Ms. Walters, I think really you're right. And I think, so do you, is that how you see Chicago flipping red? Is it the immigration issue? I know that was a big issue in this election, and I agree with you. If people come across the border illegal, they are lawbreakers by definition. And we're not a sanctuary city in Alabama, but I'll tell you this, I had a 14-year-old girl drug into a restroom in Wetumpka, Alabama, and by an individual who he had claimed to be a minor when he came to the U.S. He was 31 years old. And the Biden administration didn't bother to do a background check, turn him loose into our community. And we're not a sanctuary city. I cannot imagine what these sanctuary cities are having to deal with. And these law enforcement officers, when they're trying to just, for public safety purposes, catch people and then not even notify us because they just want to release them back into the community. So tell me, so you think this issue of just the very people who supported the Democratic Party are being left in the cold, in my humble opinion. And so is that how you're seeing Chicago flip red because of the Democratic policies and what they're doing to those communities they're supposed to be protecting?
Yes. Chicago flips red established because of that. And we are going to make it our business because we have seen the destruction that the Democratic Party policies have done to our communities and our city. It's funny that Mr. Garcia is from Chicago and he cannot tell you what's happening in our community, because if he came into our community, he would see all the gang graffiti, the Trendy Agua signs, the MS-13. He would see that across the street in the park and where they're putting the shelters at, that all the needles that's in the park, all night, all we hear is music all night, and the drinking and the defecating on the streets, all the the illegal restaurants that are allowed to operate on the residential, on our corners.
So Ms. Walters, in some ways, you feel almost like a prisoner in your own community because of the policies of the administration prior to Trump.
Yes, and then they can't lock him up. My husband just retired. He's a police officer. They cannot lock them up, and they wasn't reporting the numbers. So if an illegal alien committed a crime, they wasn't reporting it. You didn't know.
So that's why they say, oh, there's less crime by a lot of the illegals, because they're not bothering reporting the crimes that the illegals are actually committing in those communities.
Yes.
I got you. Hey, real quick question, and you can finish up on this. Democrats really, they attack Republicans often. They call us racist because of our opposition to sanctuary jurisdictions. What is your response to that when they say, we're here trying to make communities safe and they're calling us racist? What is your response to that sort of rhetoric?
Well, I say, call me a racist. And I don't want anybody who crossed over here illegally, unvetted, I don't want them in my community. So you call me racist because let me say, the Democratic Party is so far from reality They go in their gated communities. I don't see any of those people that's advocating to keep these people here. I don't see them in their house and their communities. They don't have them around their children or their husbands, but yet and still they're advocating for us to allow this in our communities around our kids and our families.
Thank you, Ms. Walters.
So, wow, she rocked the House. So this is the sanctuary jurisdictions House committee meeting. It's called Magnet for Migrants, Cover for Criminals. I'm going to put the link in the description. Now, it's like a 3 hours and 40-minute congressional hearing. So, no, we're not going to watch the whole thing here. But I encourage you to get down in the description, find the link, and watch this whole thing because there's so much more that I didn't cover here. But I just wanted to point this out. This is what the people of Chicago are saying. Now, mind you, she's at this hearing and she's sworn under oath to tell the truth. And she raised her right hand and said she swears to tell the truth, so help her God. So I would beg to say that this probably isn't alleged, you know? And if it was, then she would be in danger of Congress, which I don't think she want to risk that for the sake of Brandon Johnson or Donald Trump. But I just find it incredibly disgusting that these politicians, they use the black community and the underprivileged community, because really it's just not all blacks, because a lot of the people in poor communities are Democrat, right? They're not Republican. Okay, so why are these liberals, right, steady pushing these policies to basically hurt their own people? You know, why are these Democrats? Why are these Democrat citizens pushing these policies to hurt their own people? You know, I'm a Republican now, ever since 2016, when I found out they was trying to call Donald Trump a racist, and I grew up watching him on TV, and I knew better. So a lot of young people don't know that, though. A lot of people didn't have the privilege of, you know, knowing Trump before he ran for president. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really 100% trust the Republicans, and I don't 100% trust the Democrats either. I lean more to the right, but I'm a free-thinking American. There's a lot of things that I don't really care for that Donald Trump does, and there's a lot of things that I don't care about his cabinet. There's a lot of people in his cabinet that I don't really care too much about. But at the end of the day, if I had to make a choice between having American values as far as family values, Christian values, you know, putting an end to all of this, you know, wokeness, if you want to just stroke a broad brush across wokeness, you know, censoring of people's free speech, stuff like that, then yeah, by default, I have to go with the conservative party. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and really bash either party, but at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Okay, you can vote for whoever you want to, and you can think the way you want to. I'm not here to tell anybody how to think. I just like to put it out there so everybody can see what both sides are saying. You make your own decisions. Any comments, any questions, you put it down in the comments below. So thanks for all my subscribers who subscribe to my channel. I got, 20 subscribers now. Thank every single one of you guys. I really appreciate it. All of the likes that I got on my videos, I really appreciate that. But I would really appreciate if you would share this video to people who need to hear it, right? Because a lot of times, us as Republican, right-leaning people, we can tend to get into our own echo chambers just like the Democrats can. And I don't think we need to stay in these echo chambers. I think we need to broaden our horizons, do more homework. We need to do more research on our party and other parties to find out what's really going on, to make fully informed decisions. Look back in history, see what some of these people were behind back in the days. You know, if you start really digging in, you will find a lot, because I found way more about Brandon Johnson than I ever thought I would find out. Way too much to cover in this video. And some things that's so disturbing, it's hard for me to cover because it makes me so angry. But
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore. We appreciate everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate you all because you all are a product of the ancestors. So we've been here since the beginning of time, and we're gonna continue to be here. The cycle of life, but I think that you all might not feel like you're making a difference, but you are making a difference. And sometimes you might not see the difference, but the generations are behind you will. So I'm glad to see that you're still in the struggle. I'm glad that all of you are here, and we're gonna continue to do what we have to do.